Guys, so if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I personally mainly do commercial layers in terms of the commercial farm. You guys can see some structures right here. I'm on my commercial layer farm, and here I mainly raise chicken for eggs. So I do have 12,000 chickens on the farm that I'm, raising just to produce eggs, and I sell the eggs on the market. Now, besides that, I also do a breeder farm that I do with someone. So it's not 100% mine. I do it with someone, and over there I do breeders. So I produce day-old chicks, both layers and broilers, to supply to the market and also to supply to myself. And the main reason that I went into that was because personally, initially, when I wanted to get day-old chicks, I really struggled to get day-old chicks. I really struggled, and it was a problem. And the times that I got them, the quality wasn't good. I had to import them from Hungary at that time, just so it was a lot of chaos. So I decided to branch into it. But on the more commercial side, I mainly do layers, not broilers, yeah? And so a lot of people keep asking me, they're like, why don't you do broilers? Why don't you do broilers? You have the money, you have the skill, you have the knowledge, you have everything that's required to do the broilers. Why don't you do broilers? And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing that with you guys, yeah? Now, there are two aspects that I want to talk about. First, why I didn't do broilers when I was starting the farm. And second, why I still choose right now not to do broilers. Now, I've personally initially made a video of broilers versus layers, and in that video I talk about the differences between broilers and layers on the farm, and I also share why I personally chose to do layers and not broilers when I chose to start out my farm. And I'll probably just make a quick recap of that video, yeah, just to tell you guys why I personally chose layers. Now, the reality of the fact of the matter is that, number one, layers are more expensive to start out compared to broilers. Number two, they require way more skill to start out compared to broilers. Number three, they were more risky because if something happens, for example, you keep the birds on a farm for a really long time, you're going to keep them for 30 weeks. That's when a disease or an illness comes in. You face the problem of having to choose whether to cull the flock. Culling means, having to get rid of the flock, selling the flock, whether its time has reached or not. So if you choose to cull the birds at 30 weeks, that means getting rid of the flock. It means that you've let go of the flock before the biggest percentage of its life is done. For layers, you can keep the chickens up to 75 weeks, 80 weeks, 90 weeks. Currently, I do have a flock. The flock on the farthest away house that you see right there is actually about 88 weeks old right now, and I'm planning on keeping it up to maybe 100 weeks. So it's still doing well for me, laying eggs very well, everything doing very well. So why not just continue to do it? Considering you have to get rid of the flock at 30 weeks, have fed them for 30 weeks, you've invested too much money, you barely got back anything, and you have to get rid of it. Or you're thinking to yourself, should I keep it until the 80th week or the whatever week? But it doesn't make sense to keep your flock until 80 weeks if it's only producing, let's say, at 60%, 55%, even 65%. It just doesn't make sense. So it's way more risky, yeah? Unlike broilers on the other side of the coin, in that if they do get sick, you're only keeping them around for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks sometimes, and you'll get rid of them, and then you'll get a new flock, yeah? So even if you just decide to get rid of a flock, of course you're going to feel the pain, but it's not as much pain as you feel when it does come to layers. So like I say, it's way more sacrifice when it does come to layers. But from my experience and from what I had researched, it's more profitable to do layers compared to doing broilers. You get more money, number one. Number two, it is easier to manage over a longer time. It's just something that's, the process is much easier to repeat compared to the broilers. So that's why I personally chose to do layers, yeah? So when I went into layers, of course I started the farm and then I started growing. So I reached a point where I would have what you call enough disposable capital, money available for me to try out other things. As you guys can already see, I'm already trying out other things. I'm doing goat farming, I'm doing sheep farming, trying to do a few other things on the side in terms of farming. So then, why not integrate broilers on the farm? Yeah, why not integrate broilers on the farm? Now, there are two main reasons as to why I don't want to integrate broilers, yeah? But the first reason is not very valid because I could just choose to implement it in another way. The first reason is that doing broilers and layers on the same farm increases the biosecurity risk of the farm. So it increases the risk of getting diseases on the farm, yeah? Now, as you might already know, broilers, the cycles are much shorter, like I've said, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. For layers, much longer, 80 weeks, 90 weeks, 100 weeks. So if you're going to be doing them on the same farm, for example, I have a farm right here, and I also have land right here for which I'm going to be putting, some other structures. Then what happens is that if you do bring in a flock of broilers that's sick, you risk transferring the disease to your layer farm because you know, the biosecurity is not being implemented very well. Maybe the workers are moving between the two houses. Maybe you're mixing your feed from the same place and people meet there. You risk transmitting the disease to, you know, the other part of the farm. Now, the way you can go around that is by just placing your broiler farm in another location. You can decide to place it 5 kilometers away, 10 kilometers away, whichever distance away, and for which there is almost no interaction between the two groups of people. And that's certainly something that I can do because, like I've already told you guys, I do have a goat farm that's not so far away from here, maybe about 5-6 kilometers away from here, and it's on about, you know, 15-18 acres of land. So I could easily have decided to transfer my broiler farm right there. So again, that's not a very valid point. The main reason as to why I have chosen not to do broilers and I've chosen to concentrate on layers is because it's very difficult to become very good at two things. Very, very difficult. It's difficult for you to become really good at two or more things. Yeah? It's just like when I'm walking around, or people are asking me about my profession and, you know, what I do. They're like, oh, you're a farmer. And then they're like, oh, but what do you do for work? I'm like, well, I'm a medical doctor by profession, but I stopped practicing as a medical doctor and mainly focused on doing the farm. They're like, what? That means you wasted your years of being a doctor. You should at least have started a hospital, a clinic, something like that, or spent some hours working as a doctor, and then, you know, you can also run the farm. And then the reason I always tell them is that it's difficult for you to become really good at two things. By the time I resigned as a doctor at my workplace, I had been given an award for being the best doctor in the organization the year before. Yeah, because I resigned in January. So the year before, I'd been given an award for being the best doctor in the organization. And that's a good thing. Yeah. And if I'm to continue to practice as a doctor, I still want to be the best doctor, yeah? And then forget about practicing as a doctor. If I want to start a business in medicine, maybe a medical business, a hospital, a pharmacy, whatsoever, I still want to do the very best that I can. I want to give the best that I can. I want to be the best that I can at being in it. And I clearly know that it's very difficult for me to balance the two sides of the coin. Yeah, very, very difficult. If you want to succeed, if you want to become great at it, and if you want to be rewarded for your greatness, you want to have to focus on one of these things. Yeah? It's very easy. Look at all the richest people in the world. All the richest people in the world. I mean, it's a few people who are very good and, you know, make their money from a lot of things. Maybe people like Elon Musk. But again, how many Elon Musks are there in the world? Yeah, if you're an Elon Musk, then most probably you wouldn't even be watching this video. You don't be giving a damn about some advice that I'm giving you about, you know, poultry farming or farming in general. Yeah, you just have come up with so many business ideas, you'll be making millions of dollars. But I mean, 99.9999% of the people on earth are not Elon Musk. So Elon Musk can start and run 10 businesses and they're all successful. But the biggest percentage of people, if you look at people like Bill Gates, people like Steve Jobs, people like Mark Zuckerberg, a lot of these other people, they focused on one thing, and then once they can get that thing going and it makes them the biggest chunk of their money, then they can, you know, try to diversify into a few other things, but still their biggest focus is going to be on one thing. Yeah, and that's the same exact thing that I personally decided to do, even when it does come to broiler farming, because the thing is that for everything, money comes with scale. Yeah, if you can scale up something, the more money you can get. So initially when I started out with layers, I was thinking, you know, I can make a lot of money from layers. They're way more profitable than broilers. But right now I can afford to do broilers on quite a big scale. I can bring in, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 birds every week. And I should certainly be able to, you know, look after them and feed them and things like that. I could be able to do that, but I have chosen to not do that. Why? Because as soon as I start doing that, I then start to divide my attention. I start to divide my focus. So you guys have seen that I've been able to grow really quickly when it does come to my commercial layer farm. I started out in 2019 with just 800 birds. We are currently in 2025 and I have over 12,000 birds, well, at least 12,000 birds on the farm. That's because of quick growth. Yeah, I've been able to grow really quickly, multiply and grow really quickly. And I want to be able to maintain that type of growth. Yeah. The thing is that in order for you to make the decisions that ensure that you multiply and grow quickly, you need focus. You need focus. Personally, I sit down a lot and think about my business, the farm. Now, of course, there are other things that I do. Yeah, I've told you guys that I'm probably going into tourism very soon. So I'm buying land somewhere where, you know, in a place that's, you know, quite good for tourism. Again, it's something that I love to do, but I probably won't be spending too much time there like I spend on the farm. I've done the Farm Up Academy. Of course, there's the YouTube channel. There's the goat farm. I'm writing a book. I've done quite a number of other things that can bring me money, but you can still see that a lot of my focus is on the farm. Why? Because consistently I'm sitting down and thinking about the problems that I'm facing and forget even about the problems. Sometimes I just sit down and I'm just thinking about the circumstances that I'm facing, you know, the things that are around me. How can I deal with them better? How can I improve over here? How can I get 1% better? How can I get 2% better in this field, in this aspect, in this? And it's very difficult for you to think about that, for you to be very critical about things like that if you're dividing your attention. So if I'm going to be dividing my attention, if it does come to broilers, now I'm going to have to figure out again how to get market for broilers, where to place the broiler farm, who to sell the, you know, the broilers to. I'm going to have to go through the learning process of how to perfect everything when it does come to broilers. Of course, a lot of the knowledge can be transferred from layers to broilers, but again, there's still a lot of things that I'm going to have to learn. And all that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of concentration. It's just something that I'm not willing to sacrifice to do. So then you'll say that, but then why have you decided to go into, you know, goat farming and sheep farming? Yes, I have decided to go into it, but first of all, those are things that don't require as much attention and focus. I'm currently doing my goat farm on a more free-range system. With time, I'm going to intensify, but I mean, it's not as critical. Managing goats is not as complicated and difficult as managing chickens, as you can see. That's number one. But number two, I don't have very big goals in terms of growing the farm when it does come to, you know, the goat farm. Yeah, I do have goals, of course, i.e., I want to have 300 goats, then maybe 600 at a particular point, maybe in 4 or 5 years' time. But at the moment, it's not like I want to grow really quickly. It's not like it's what's feeding me. I'm willing to invest into the goat farm for 5 years before I get a shilling back. I'm very willing, yeah? And because, I mean, how much I put in is very little, and I just want to do it well enough. So I'm not like going very vigorous and all these kinds of things, yeah? Unlike doing a broiler farm, you can't say that you're not going to go vigorous, because in itself, by the nature of the kind of business it is, it's going to demand that you go vigorous. And if you don't go vigorous, you're going to miss out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to lose out on money. So I personally have decided that, hey, I'm just going to concentrate on the commercial layer farm for now. It's very important, and I believe that's what has enabled me to grow up to this point. Now, if I side out with broilers, then most probably my focus would be there, and trust me, I wouldn't try to branch into other things until I'm very certain that, you know, I've done it the most effective way that it can be done. And again, that's something that I advise each and every one of you. You know, you want to start a farm, it doesn't matter what kind of farm that it is or what kind of business it is. The more you focus, the higher your likelihood that, you know, you're going to be successful and get lots and lots of money and be successful at it. Now, if you're the kind of person who is outside there and you want to start a farm, you want to actually start a commercial layer farm or broiler farm, but you have completely no knowledge, you have no skill, know nothing about it, well, I've come up with the Farm Up Academy. I have quite a number of students in there, and in there I teach you how to start and build a successful commercial farm that can bring you anything between, you know, 5,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 US dollars every month. In there I have templates, you know, everything that you do require to give you the confidence and even the guides that you require for you to start and be successful and thrive as a farmer. You can check it out. I'll leave a link to the Farm Up Academy in the description. I'll be very glad to see you there. Catch you very soon with another video. Lots of love. Bye-bye.